Just hang in there one more year, and then we'll put her in a nursing home. Your mother is already losing her mind. Having her here is a drag." That was the Mother's Day greeting my daughter and son-in-law dedicated to me. I froze behind the solid oak door, the tray of pastries in my hands, trembling uncontrollably. Through the crack in the door, I saw my mother-in-law, Linda, sitting comfortably in my red velvet armchair. She raised her glass of wine, met my gaze through the gap, but showed no shame. On the contrary, she flashed me a sly, defiant smirk. She wanted me to hear it. They thought I would crumble, that I would cry or beg for their affection. But the trembling in my hands vanished, giving way to a chilling calm. I simply adjusted my blouse and stepped out of the darkness. They were about to learn that when you trample on a mother's pride, the price to pay is incredibly high. Hello, my name is Evelyn. Barely 15 minutes before that cruel moment, I still felt like the happiest woman in San Francisco. I remember the aroma of dark chocolate mixed with the scent of fresh cinnamon rolls wafting to my nose, awakening my senses. I adjusted my hand-embroidered apron, catching a glimpse of my reflection in the window pane. Today was Mother's Day, and I wanted to give my daughter Emily, my son-in-law Jason, and his mother Linda the most perfect party. I smiled, imagining the scene a little later, when the sun would be high and the whole family would gather around the long dining table. I had personally polished the fine Lenox china, a family heirloom, those exquisite plates with gold rims that my mother left me. Every crystal goblet, every white lace napkin, everything was placed in its exact spot. The sun began to filter through the arched window, illuminating the oil paintings hanging on the wall. The grandfather clock struck 10 in the morning. The atmosphere in the house began to liven up. I heard the sound of a car parking in the driveway, the clicking of heels on the stone path, and cheerful jazz music playing from the Bluetooth speaker in the living room. It was playing a classic tune, the kind used to wake up beloved women on special days. My heart beat to the rhythm of happiness. I adjusted my apron, fixed my hair, which was pulled back in a bun, and carrying the tray of freshly baked pastries, I headed toward the living room. My heels resonated on the cool hardwood floors, but when I was just 2 steps away from the living room archway, the music seemed to be drowned out by someone. It wasn't that the music had stopped, but rather that another voice rose up so cutting and cruel that it tore my eardrums, drowning out any other joyful sound. "Just hang in there one more year, and then we'll put her in a nursing home." It was the voice of Emily, my daughter. My feet stopped dead. The tray of pastries in my hands shook violently. The rolls wobbled, bumping into each other. I held my breath. A nursing home? Hang in there? Immediately, a cloying male voice joined in. It was Jason, the beloved son-in-law I had taken in. "Your mom is already going senile. The other day she forgot to turn off the stove. Having her here is too dangerous." Blood rushed to my head. Senile? That was the most blatant lie I had ever heard. It was he who, drunk that night, heated up a pizza and fell asleep on the couch, almost setting the kitchen on fire if I hadn't come down in time to turn off the gas. And now he dared to turn that act that saved his life into an excuse to get rid of me. I pressed myself against the cold wall, peering through the crack of the carved oak door. The scene before my eyes felt like someone was squeezing my heart. Emily, the daughter I raised like a jewel, was sitting carelessly on the sofa, playing with the pearl necklace I gave her. Jason was beside her with a glass of wine in his hand, wearing the triumphant expression of someone who just won the lottery. And Linda, his mother, was sitting comfortably in the red velvet armchair, the only seat of honor in the house. My seat. She had my favorite Hermes silk scarf draped over her shoulders. Suddenly, Linda looked up. Her gaze met mine directly, paralyzed in the darkness of the hallway. I expected shame. I expected her to drop the wineglass in shock. But no. Linda slowly raised the glass of dark red wine to eye level, arched an eyebrow, and the corners of her lips curled into a sly, defiant smile. A predator's smile looking at its wounded, dying prey. She didn't care that I heard her. She wanted me to hear her. Something broke inside me. It wasn't pain. It was the last shred of respect I had left for this family. The trembling in my hands disappeared. In its place appeared a terrifying calm, cold, very cold. I stepped out of the darkness. The sound of my heels hitting the wooden floor was as crisp and powerful as a judge's gavel. The whole room went silent. Emily jumped, dropping her spoon to the floor. Jason quickly hid his hands behind his back, his smile vanishing. Only Linda kept that brazen smile, the wine glass still near her lips. I walked directly to the glass coffee table in the center of the room. I swept my gaze over their three faces: a foolish daughter, a greedy son-in-law, and a shameless mother-in-law. I set the tray of pastries on the table. The sound was soft but resonated in the deadly silence. I stood tall, smoothed my clothes, and looked directly into the eyes of Emily, the daughter for whom I had sacrificed my entire youth to protect. I started speaking with a dry voice, without a hint of tremor. "Why wait? Let's end this right now." Emily's face drained of all color. She stammered, "Mom, what are you saying?" I didn't let her finish the sentence. I turned around resolutely. "Evelyn, are you crazy? The guests are about to arrive." Linda shouted behind me with a mixture of panic. I turned a deaf ear. I went straight up the stairs. Each step under my feet was no longer the path to my bedroom, but a runway for takeoff. I entered my room, opened the closet. I didn't take clothes. I didn't take jewelry. I just looked for the old, worn brown leather Hermes Kelly bag that was in the back corner, a memento of the days when I started my business from scratch. I opened the safe, gathered all the property deeds, my passport, and my checkbook. Phone in hand, I dialed a number. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. "Hello, Philip," I said as soon as they answered on the other end, my voice icy. "Come pick me up. Bring the absenteeism papers immediately." I hung up, grabbed the bag, and went downstairs. When I passed through the living room again, those 3 people were still planted there like defective wax statues. Jason tried to open his mouth, but my gaze pierced him, as sharp as a scalpel, making him swallow his words. I walked out the front door. The radiant San Francisco sun hit my face, intense but liberating. Philip's shiny black sedan was already parked in front of the driveway. The car door was open like an escape route. I got in and slammed the door without looking back a single time. The car glided smoothly down Van Ness Avenue, the spine of the city. Philip remained silent, a silence of absolute respect toward me. He knew that in that moment, I didn't need empty words of comfort. I needed to face myself. I rested my head on the cold car window. The skyscrapers, the rows of Victorian houses, and the dense traffic slid backward. But my mind wasn't here. It was traveling back in time, back to the beginning of all the tragedy and glory. 30 years ago, on this very street. That day, it was raining buckets. Summer storms in the Bay Area are rare, but the pain this one left me lasted a lifetime. My husband, a kind man with a smile as warm as the morning sun, was gone forever in a tragic traffic accident right at this intersection. He left me a dilapidated rental house, a few dollars, and little Emily, who had just turned 5. I still remember the feeling of suffocation at that humble funeral. No trumpets, no expensive flowers, just the murmur of prayers and the drumming of rain on the lid of the cheap pine coffin. Little Emily clung to my leg, her big round dark eyes looking at her mother with bewilderment. She didn't understand what death was. She only knew that her father would never again take her to get ice cream. In that moment, while hugging my daughter tight, feeling her small body tremble with cold, I swore to God and my husband's soul, I will never let my daughter suffer. I will never let her have to bow down for money. And I succeeded. Or at least, I thought I did. From the ashes of pain, I built the Golden Grain. It wasn't just a bakery, it was my battlefield. I remember the sleepless nights next to the scorching oven, my back soaked in sweat. My hands, born to play the piano, became rough, full of calluses and burn scars from hot trays. There were days I only slept 3 hours, waking up at 4 in the morning to knead and bake sourdough and croissants to have the hot batch ready for the morning commuters. Every dollar earned tasted of sweat and tears, and little by little, the aroma of vanilla, cinnamon, and butter from the Golden Grain conquered the neighborhood and then the whole city. 1 shop became 2, 2 became 5. I became the queen of sweets. Money flowed into my account like a flood. I compensated Emily with everything money could buy. I enrolled her in the most prestigious private school in Pacific Heights, reserved for the children of politicians and tech tycoons. She was driven and picked up in a private car. She wore designer dresses tailored in Europe. For her 18th birthday, I gave her a bright red convertible sports car. I looked at my daughter's soft, white hands, hands that had never touched dishwater or held a broom and felt pride. I thought I had protected her from the harshness of life. But now, sitting in this car, looking at my own wrinkled and scarred hands, I realize my fatal mistake. I raised a princess. I gave her silks and jewels, but I forgot to teach her how to rule her own kingdom. I forgot to teach her that the crown weighs heavy, and if the neck isn't strong enough, it breaks. I robbed her of the opportunity to mature through difficulties. That's why, when she went out into the world, she was as weak and naive as a lamb lost in a pack of wolves. And that wolf appeared. Jason. The memory takes me back to the night 3 years ago, the day Emily brought Jason home for the first time. He came from a poor family. I have never despised the poor because I rose from the bottom myself. But Jason's poverty wasn't in his pocket. It was in his character. He exuded that false arrogance typical of untalented men who want to be bosses. The suit he wore was a bit too big, his leather shoes shined exaggeratedly, and the way he combed his hair with gel, everything betrayed a forced effort. But what chilled my blood the most wasn't his appearance, it was his gaze. When he entered the living room of my house, instead of looking at Emily with passionate love, his eyes locked onto the Edward Hopper paintings hanging on the wall. He swept his gaze over the antiques, the crystal chandelier, and the valuable wine cellar with undisguised greed. It was the look of a starving man at a sumptuous banquet, calculating which dish was best to slip into his pocket. That dinner was the beginning of a series of days where I deluded myself. In the following family meals, Jason used to bring his mother, Linda. Mother and son were like a perfect duo, coordinating perfectly in their dramas of psychological manipulation. I remember Sunday dinners when Linda, while chewing on a prime steak, would drop sweet hints. "Oh, Evelyn, you work too much. At your age, you should be traveling, resting. Let the young ones handle the money. They are smarter. They know how to invest for profits, not like our generation that clings to what we have." Jason would join in immediately, toying with his expensive wine glass. "That's right, Mom. My mother-in-law has worked hard all her life. Now the trend is investing in crypto, in vacation real estate. Mom, just delegate the fund management to Emily and me. I promise I'll make it grow 10 times more than that artisanal bakery." Every time I heard those words, my stomach turned. I didn't care about the money with my daughter, but the intuition of a businesswoman who has fought for years told me, they don't want to manage the wealth, they want to spend, I want to spend it. I tried to warn Emily. That night, I entered my daughter's room. Emily was brushing her hair in front of the mirror, her face radiant with happiness. I tried to choose my words as gently as possible. "Emily, don't you think Jason is a little too interested in our family's assets? I worry he isn't sincere." Before I could finish, Emily spun around abruptly. The brush fell onto the vanity. Her look toward me was full of reproach and pain. "Mom, why do you always doubt him? Just because he's poor? Don't impose your outdated prejudices and your bitterness on my husband. Don't you want me to be happy?" No. That phrase, "Don't you want me to be happy?" stopped all my warnings. It was the ultimate weapon she used unintentionally to hurt me. Because I loved her too much, because I was afraid she would be sad, that she would think I was an old despot, I chose silence. I took a step back, telling myself, well, let them be. I'm still here, alive and kicking. I can control it. I was wrong. My silence wasn't tolerance. It was complicity. I allowed my son-in-law and mother-in-law to erode my self-esteem day by day. From Jason taking my car without asking, to Linda coming to my house and giving orders to the housekeeper as if she were the owner. From small sums of money borrowed for businesses that never made a profit, to luxury shopping bills in Emily's name that I paid. Every time I tried to say something, the image of Emily's teary eyes and the question, "Don't you want me to be happy?" appeared, choking me. And the climax was this morning, when my silence was interpreted by them as weakness, when my kindness was seen as the stupidity of old age. The car braked sharply, pulling me out of my painful journey through memories. Philip turned with his deep, warm voice. "Ma'am, we've left the city. We're reaching the highway to Napa Valley." I blinked, holding back tears that threatened to fall. I looked in the rearview mirror, observing the face reflecting back. The wrinkles at the corners of her eyes were deeper, but her gaze no longer held the resignation of a kind mother. Napa Valley welcomed me with the golden, radiant sun characteristic of wine country. The car passed through a wrought iron gate with intricate designs and advanced down a gravel path leading to the vineyard, the estate I bought 10 years ago as a refuge for my soul. The air here was completely different from San Francisco. There was no fog or honking horns, just the fresh scent of cut grass and the vibrant green of the vineyards climbing the rolling hills. This place should have brought me peace, but today, even the singing of the birds felt shrill. The car stopped in front of the main entrance. I didn't get out immediately. Philip, my old friend and loyal lawyer, turned off the engine, but his hands remained gripped on the steering wheel. He looked at me through the rearview mirror with a hesitant look full of concern. "Evelyn," his voice turned grave, cautious. "I think you need to see this right now, before you go into the house." I frowned, but Philip wasn't one to dramatize. If he said I needed to see it, it meant it was something very serious. He turned and handed me an iPad with the screen on. "It's an Instagram story from Jason," he said briefly, then looked away as if he didn't want to witness my pain. I took the device. My finger slid smoothly across the screen. The video started playing. The first sound that hit my ears was the sharp pop of a champagne cork leaving the bottle. It was followed by the shrill, wild laughter of a crowd. The camera shook, focusing closely on Jason's face, flushed with alcohol. He was holding a bottle of dark red wine, a Screaming Eagle, 1994, a Grand Reserve, raising it high like a victory trophy. I felt like someone squeezed my heart. That bottle of wine was the bottle from my husband's and my wedding anniversary. My husband had bought it on a trip to the valley, asking me to open it on our 40th anniversary. He was no longer here, and I had kept it like a treasure, waiting for the day to drink it with his spirit. And now it was in the hands of my greedy son-in-law, being shaken roughly and poured freely into cheap glasses. The camera panned to the side, and I saw Linda sitting in the main chair at the head of the dining table, the chair no one dared to occupy when I was home. But what made my blood boil wasn't the chair. It was the silk scarf on her neck. The zebra print Hermes silk scarf, the only gift Emily bought me with her first paycheck. I had treasured it, kept carefully in a velvet box, never having worn it once. Now it was tied carelessly around Linda's wrinkled neck, stained with cake crumbs and wine splashes. She raised her glass and shouted at the camera, "Cheers to a house without a bitter old hag." And then the last image appeared, delivering the coup de grace. Emily was standing, leaning on her husband's shoulder, with a glass of wine in her hand and a flushed face. She wasn't crying for her mother's departure. She wasn't worried if her mother was alive or dead. She was laughing a loud laugh, joining in the joke of her mother-in-law and husband. The text below the video appeared, each word like a needle sticking into my eyes. Finally got rid of the nuisance. Cheers to freedom. Freedom, new life. Goodbye, mother-in-law. I stared at the screen. The video repeated over and over. The pop of the cork, the laughter, the toast. It turns out that the love, sacrifice, and protection of 64 years of my life for them was summarized in one word: nuisance. I waited for the tears to fall, but strangely, my eyes were dry. Not a single tear welled up. Extreme pain, when it hits rock bottom, stops being pain. It becomes disgust. I felt nauseous. I was disgusted by my own daughter's smile. I was disgusted by the impudence of my in-laws. And above all, I was disgusted by my own blindness for so long. That house in San Francisco, where I once caressed every brick, every flower pot, was no longer a home in my eyes. It had become a decomposing corpse, devoured by vultures. Those dancing inside weren't my family, they were parasites. And parasites have no humanity. They only know how to suck the blood of their host until the last drop. I turned off the iPad screen. Click. The sharp sound interrupted the wild laughter of the video. I took a deep breath, feeling the aroma of the estate's lavender fill my lungs, replacing the polluted air of betrayal. I looked up at Philip. He was still looking at me with concern, his hand already on the door handle, ready to hold me if I fainted. But I didn't faint. I sat up straight, adjusted the collar of my blouse, and my voice sounded so calm it surprised even me. Cold, cutting, and ruthless. "Philip." I called him by his name, looking directly into his eyes without wavering. "I'm here, Evelyn." "You already know what you have to do," I said, pronouncing every word slowly, with clarity. "Activate the absentee clause in the trust immediately." Philip's eyes widened, surprised by my determination, but then he nodded repeatedly, taking out his phone. "Which accounts do you want to cut?" Jason's additional credit card? The money for Emily's expenses? I sketched a smile, a bitter smile that Linda would probably never understand. Everything, Philip, everything. Cancel the credit cards, cut the power, cut the water, cut the internet. Block access to all associated bank accounts. Suspend the private security service. I paused, remembering my husband's anniversary wine bottle that they were drinking profanely, and send a notification to the bank, freeze all liquid assets. In the house, from this moment on, they are illegal intruders. Philip dialed a number and began giving orders to his subordinates with short, professional sentences. I listened, feeling light. I am not taking revenge. I am just teaching them a lesson on how this world works. There is no free lunch, and there is no ingratitude that goes unpaid. Seeing my daughter celebrate over her mother's pain, I wonder if I am being too cruel by deciding to cut off all help. Part of me wants to teach them a lesson they remember for life, wants to see them struggle when they no longer have their mother's support. But the other part, a mother's heart, still aches thinking of her daughter in trouble. If you were in my place, would you choose to remain lenient, or would you punish these ungrateful children without mercy? Share your feelings with me in the comments below. I really need you to give me strength. 3 days have passed since I left San Francisco to come to the Napa estate. Here, I drink afternoon tea under the shade of an oak tree, listen to the birds singing, and enjoy absolute tranquility. But in my old house, the chaos has barely just begun. Hello, I am sitting in the estate's library with a cup of hot chamomile tea in hand, and my eyes glued to the iPad screen. The security camera system I installed in secret 2 years ago, originally to prevent burglaries, has now become my private cinema to enjoy the best play of my life. On the screen, the living room of my house appears like a battlefield. Empty wine bottles roll across the floor. Half-eaten pizza boxes are scattered on the expensive Italian leather sofa. No one cleans anymore. The housekeeper resigned as soon as Philip informed her that he would stop paying her salary. The front door flies open. Jason enters. He doesn't walk normally. He bursts in with the enraged face of a bull that has been provoked. He kicks a cushion across the floor. Damn it! What humiliation! I can't believe they humiliated me like that! Jason screams. The sound is heard clearly through the iPad speaker. Linda, who was lying on the sofa with a cucumber mask, jumps up. What happened, son? Why did you come back so early? I thought you were going to treat your friends to dinner at that steakhouse downtown. Jason ruffles his hair, pacing back and forth across the room. He relates a story that makes me want to laugh out loud. It turns out that to prove he was the new master of the house, Jason invited his group of nouveau riche friends to the most luxurious steakhouse in the financial district. He ordered wine, he ordered Kobe beef, he ordered lobster. He ate and drank his fill, bragging about imaginary multi-million-dollar projects, but when it came time to pay, that waiter. Jason hisses between his teeth. He took my credit card, came back, looked at me with contempt, and said loudly in front of all my friends, "Excuse me, sir, the card has been declined. The bank reports it was reported stolen, and the holder has canceled it." Do you understand how I felt? The whole restaurant turned to look at me. I took a sip of tea. The sweetness of the honey dissolved on my tongue. Of course I understood. I called the bank as soon as I set foot in Napa. "Then who paid?" asks Linda, stuttering. "Who else was it going to be?" Jason hits the wall hard. "I had to call Emily. She had to empty all the cash we had kept in the house safe to come rescue me. Now there isn't a single dollar in cash left in the house." He collapses onto the sofa, holding his head. He doesn't know that this is just the beginning. That night, I stayed up to keep watching the play. The clock struck 10 at night. Linda was taking a bubble bath on the second floor. She was enjoying the hot water and scented foam my soap imported from France. Meanwhile, Jason was in the entertainment room with headphones on, shouting into the microphone while playing online on the 80-inch television. Suddenly, on my iPad screen, the image of the bathroom camera shows the faucet stops working. Linda was washing her hair with white foam covering her eyes. She fumbles for the water handle. Not a drop. "What the hell? Emily! Emily, where is the water?" she screams, her shrill voice resonating through the whole house. At the same time, in the entertainment room, Jason slams the keyboard. The TV screen shows an internet connection error. The internet went out in the middle of a battle. He screams and screams. And then, all the camera windows on my iPad simultaneously switch to infrared mode, black and white. The power went out. The entire huge mansion plunged into dense darkness. I hear Linda's panicked screams from the bathroom, Jason's hurried steps, and Emily's scared crying. "The generator! Turn on the generator!" Jason shouts in the dark. I smile, turn off the iPad, and go to sleep. They will find the backup generator in the backyard, but they will never be able to turn it on, because that industrial generator needs a 6-digit activation code. And the only person who has that code is sleeping peacefully in a silk bed 50 miles away. The next morning, I woke up early and turned on the iPad. The cameras were working again thanks to the security system's backup battery, but the house remained as silent as a tomb. The morning light illuminated a messy living room. Those 3 people were huddled on the sofa with gaunt faces after a sleepless night without air conditioning, without hot water, and most importantly, without internet. Linda looked the worst, with her hair matted by the dry shampoo she hadn't been able to rinse out. Exactly at 8 in the morning, the doorbell rang. It wasn't the electrician or the plumber. It was 2 men in impeccable black suits carrying leather briefcases. They were partners from Philip's law firm. Jason lunged to open the door, as aggressive as if he wanted to eat them alive. "Who are you? Why did you cut the power and water to my house? I'm going to sue the utility company." The lead lawyer calmly adjusted his glasses and handed him a paper with a bright red stamp. "Good morning, Mr. Jason. We represent Mrs. Evelyn. We have come to execute the asset protection procedure." "Protect what? This is my wife's house. If my mother-in-law isn't here, we manage it," Jason shouted, trying to salvage the little masculine pride he had left. The lawyer smiled a corporate cold smile. "You are mistaken. According to the trust established by Mrs. Evelyn's late husband and current estate laws, this mansion is property of the family trust. Mrs. Evelyn is the sole trustee with lifetime rights. While she lives, she has full right to decide who can stay and who must go." He entered the house, signaling his companion to begin sealing the door to the wine cellar, the door to my master bedroom, and that of my study. Jason stood petrified. "What are you doing?" When the trustee, that is, Mrs. Evelyn, abandons her residence for an indefinite time without authorization for occupants, the legal system automatically considers the house at risk of loss. We are sealing valuables to protect our clients' interests. As for you. The lawyer turned to look at Jason, Emily, and Linda with the look one gives unwanted guests. "You are not listed on any lease agreement, nor do you hold title. Legally, you are guests. And guests do not have the right to demand that electricity or water be restored if the owner has canceled the service contracts." Jason stepped back, tripping over an empty wine bottle on the floor. His face went pale. He turned to Emily with a look of total bewilderment. "Emily, that means we can't sell the house? You promised me." "Well, didn't you think this house was yours?" Emily lowered her head and whispered, "Mom never put it in my name. She said only when she died." "Damn it!" Jason roared, kicking the glass table. She realized the trap. She thought she had gotten rid of me to take over the castle, but she didn't know that this castle is only splendid with its queen. When the queen leaves, it's nothing more than a pile of lifeless bricks, cold and dark. The lawyer left the notice on the table, his firm voice concluding the matter. "We give you 24 hours to clean the current state of the house. If you do not comply, we will call the police to evict you for vandalism of private property. Have a good day." They left, leaving 3 greedy people standing alone in the middle of a huge house that was no longer their home. Through the screen, I saw Jason collapse onto the floor with his hands on his head. He wasn't worried about the power cut. He was trembling. He realized he had no right to sell a single brick of that house. It only took them 5 days to turn a splendid palace into a dumpster. From the iPad screen on my tea table in Napa, I witnessed the collapse of what I once called family. There was no longer cheerful jazz music or the smell of fresh bread. Instead, through the sharp 4K camera resolution, I could almost smell the sour, penetrating stench emanating from the house. Garbage piled up in a corner of the kitchen, half-eaten pizza boxes, empty beer bottles, soda cans scattered on the floor. Flies began to buzz around the sink full of dirty dishes with green mold that no one bothered to wash. That bad smell, although I couldn't smell it directly, I knew it from their expressions of disgust and the way they covered their noses walking through the house. The refrigerator that I used to fill with prime meat, imported cheeses, and fresh fruit was now empty. Only a few water bottles were rolling around, and a withered onion. In the kitchen, Jason rummaged through the cupboards in search of food. He was wearing only shorts, his belly protruded, and he was sweating profusely because the central air conditioning was cut. He slammed the refrigerator door and kicked it so hard he dented it. The loud noise made Emily, who was sitting with her head down at the dining table, jump. Jason turned sharply, his face red from hunger and heat, and pointed a finger at his wife's face. "Where is your mother, huh? How come at this point you still don't know where she is? What kind of daughter are you?" I let out a bitter laugh. How ridiculous. Just a few days ago, he toasted to his freedom and called me a nuisance to be gotten rid of. Now, with an empty stomach and wallet, he was screaming looking for his mother-in-law. Human shamelessness really has no limits. Emily shrank and whispered, I called her, but her phone is off. I called Mr. Phillip, but his firm refuses to attend to me. Useless. This insult didn't come from Jason, it came from the living room. Linda entered, fanning herself with a paper fan, frowning. Her loud makeup had run from the sweat, revealing the wrinkles of a hard life. She cast a contemptuous look at Emily and then complained to her son. "I told you, Jason, when choosing a wife, you have to look at her lineage. Look at her. She burns even a fried egg. The house is as dirty as a pigsty. How is she going to serve her husband? A daughter-in-law like that." Emily never had to do housework. Mom and the housekeeper always did it, Emily said, looking up with eyes full of tears, her voice trembling. "Well, now you have to do it," Linda interrupted, her voice screeching like metal scraping glass. "You should have used that empty head of yours to think. You should have flattered that old witch, tricked her into signing the property transfer papers, and then let her go. Fool. Now she's gone. There's no money. The house can't be sold. Do you plan to let your mother and me starve?" I saw Emily freeze. Her eyes widened, looking shocked at the woman she once respected and called mother-in-law. She must be in shock. Linda's mask of kindness and respectability had fallen, revealing her true form, a greedy, calculating witch. She never loved Emily like a daughter. She only loved the gold mine Emily represented. Jason didn't defend his wife. He walked back and forth like a caged beast, and suddenly stopped with bloodshot eyes. "Jason, cash. Surely that old woman still has cash hidden in the house," he muttered, then ran to the back storage room. A moment later, he returned with a black iron crowbar in his hand. "Jason, what are you doing?" Emily stood up scared, blocking his path. "Move!" He pushed her aside, making her fall to the floor, and then went up the stairs with a threatening air. I held my breath, watching. He was heading to my bedroom. He was going to force the door. The sound of wood breaking sounded dry. The finely carved oak door, where I once locked myself to keep my last shred of privacy, was brutally forced by my son-in-law with a crowbar. He entered the room like a whirlwind. He ransacked the closet, threw the blankets and pillows on the floor. Nothing. I had taken it all. Finally, his eyes fixed on the wall, safe behind the painting. Jason let out a wild laugh. He thought he had found the treasure. He struggled to force the safe door with the crowbar. Since I had left it unlocked before leaving, with slight pressure, the heavy steel door opened. He stuck his hand in, groping, but inside it was empty. There were no bundles of high-denomination bills. There were no diamond jewelry sets. There were no savings books. There was only a single yellow note stuck right in the center. Jason ripped the note off, bringing it close to his eyes to read under the dim light coming through the window. I saw the muscles in his face contract, turning from red to purple. The words I had carefully written in black ink appeared clearly in my mind. "Dignity isn't in money, Jason. It's in the hands that work. If you want to eat, get in the kitchen." Jason let out a roar of pain and madness. He tore the note to pieces, crumpled them in his hand, and threw them to the floor. He hit the safe, the walls, and the vanity mirror with the crowbar. Shards of mirror flew everywhere. Emily was at the door of the room, trembling, clinging to the broken wooden frame. She looked at the man, destroying everything with madness, and her look was no longer of blind love. It was of absolute terror. She was seeing a monster, a cowardly, violent failure, cornered. Linda was behind her daughter-in-law, also silent. She realized the fountain had dried up and that her son was losing control. I turned off the screen. The room in the estate fell silent again. I didn't feel the satisfaction I expected. I felt pity, Pity for the destroyed wooden door, pity for the peace of the house, and pity for my daughter trembling before the claws of a beast. But I knew this stage was necessary. The cocoon must break painfully for the butterfly to emerge. Emily needed to see, fear, hurt, to be able to wake up. When the money runs out is when they show their cruelest face. The facade of perfect husband and understanding mother-in-law has vanished, leaving only selfishness exposed. They think my daughter is guilty for being an accomplice to her husband or worthy of pity for being so blind. And if you were me, seeing your daughter so scared, would you intervene immediately? Or would you wait for the lesson to be fully assimilated? I would love to hear your sincere advice based on your life experiences in the comments section. 11 at night. Philip knocked on my study door. His face, usually so serene, now showed extreme tension. He didn't say anything, just silently placed the iPad on the table, reconnecting the surveillance camera system. "You need to see this, Evelyn." Philip's voice was grave and hoarse. "The unwanted guests have arrived, and this time, they don't bring briefcases or court orders." I looked at the screen. The infrared light of the security camera captured a grim scene in the living room, where the electricity had been cut and only the dim light of a flashlight and car headlights entering through the window remained. 3 black SUVs were parked arrogantly on my lawn, the lawn I had worked so hard to maintain. 4 burly men got out of the vehicles. They wore black suits, but not the elegant kind of lawyers or businessmen. Their suits were strained by bulging muscles. The one in front had a long scar running from the corner of his eye to his chin. They didn't knock on the door. They kicked it down, a door that was no longer locked well because the electronic lock had no power. In the living room, Jason, Emily, and Linda were huddled around a candle. When those men entered, all 3 jumped. I saw Jason leap up. He wasn't as aggressive as when he shouted at his wife. He was trembling. He knew who these guys were. The man with the scar approached without saying a word, grabbed Jason by the shirt collar, and threw him violently to the floor. The sound of the body hitting the wooden floor resonated dryly through the iPad speaker. "Jason," said the man with the scar, with a voice grave and cold as a razor blade on stone. "Time's up. Where is your promise? Where is my boss's money?" Jason knelt at the feet of that man, clasping his hands as if he were praying. "Boss, please, give me a little more time. I swear, I almost have the money. My mother-in-law just left for a few days, please." "I don't care where that old woman went," interrupted the man with the scar, taking out a thick file from the inside pocket of his jacket and throwing it in Jason's face. "You said you owned this house. You mortgaged the promise of selling this mansion to ask for a loan of $250,000 to play online poker. Now you've lost it all. Either the money, or the house, or your life. $250,000. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles turning white. It turns out that behind his glamorous facade, Jason was a compulsive gambler. He had dared to bet the sweat and tears of my entire life in virtual card games. But now I can't sell it," Jason stammered, sweating buckets. "The lawyers have sealed it. I don't have the ownership papers." "I already knew you were useless," sneered the man with the scar, sitting on the sofa and putting his feet on the table. "That's why I prepared this." He opened the file. It was a property sales contract, blank, already drafted. Only the seller's signature was missing. "If you can't sign, have your wife sign," he said, pointing with his chin to Emily, who was trembling in a dark corner. "That girl is Evelyn's biological daughter, right? Make her forge the old woman's signature. We have contacts to notarize forged documents so the signature looks real. This house will change owners in the blink of an eye." Jason clung to that like a burning nail. He turned sharply toward Emily, crawling across the floor until he reached her side. "Emily, did you hear? Save me, please." Emily shook her head, tears running down her face. "No, I can't. Jason, it's fraud. It's illegal. If Mom finds out, she'll kill me. I'll go to jail." "Going to jail is better than me dying," Jason screamed, his eyes bloodshot with madness. He grabbed Emily by the shoulders and shook her hard. "Sign, just one signature, then we'll see what we do." "They're gonna kill me. Do you want to be a widow?" I can't. This is my mom's house," sobbed Emily, struggling to free herself from her husband's hands. Suddenly, Jason slapped Emily. It wasn't a soft slap. It was the blow of a coward unloading all his fear and anger on someone weaker. Emily fell to the floor, hitting her head against the edge of the table. She covered her face, looking at her husband with a shattered gaze. "Useless," hissed Jason, pointing at his wife. "You are just like your mother. Selfish, stingy. I am about to die and you worry about this ruined house? Sign now." I froze. I felt like someone was cutting my heart with a dull knife. My daughter was being beaten in her own house by the man she loved most. I wanted to scream, tell Philip to call the police immediately. My hand had already grabbed the phone, but Philip gently put his hand on mine and shook his head. "Not yet, Evelyn. Look." He pointed to Linda, the mother-in-law. The woman who always claimed to love her daughter-in-law like her own daughter. What was she doing now? She stood watching impassively as her daughter-in-law was beaten. She didn't intervene at all. In fact, she approached, leaned in, and whispered the most poisonous words into Emily's ear. "Emily, don't be stubborn. If your husband dies, you won't live in peace either. Sign at once. Your mother is already old. She's senile. She won't know anything. Sign so your husband can live. As a wife, you have to know how to sacrifice." Disgust rose in my throat, bitter. She wasn't just cruel. She was a demon in human skin. They were conspiring to force my daughter to commit a crime, to betray her own mother to save her son's cowardly life. The man with the scar watched the family drama with contempt. He took out a switchblade, opened the shiny blade, and stabbed it into the wooden table. "I give you 5 minutes. Without a signature, I'll take a finger from this guy instead." Emily looked at the knife, then at Jason, who was crying and begging, and then at Linda pressuring her. She shrank, alone and desperate. I turned off the screen. I couldn't keep watching. "Evelyn?" Philip asked with a worried voice. I sat in the dark, covering my face with my hands. Hot tears leaked between my fingers. Pain, much pain, more pain than when my husband died. Because death is the separation of the body, but this betrayal is the death of trust. But after the pain came a chilling clarity. "Don't call the police yet, Philip," I said, my voice broken but firm. "Call the private security team we already hired. Have them surround the exterior, but not intervene unless—" I swallowed my tears, raised my head. My dry eyes looked at the dark night outside the window. "Unless the girl's life is truly in danger. For now, let her experience it. She has to see with her own eyes the nature of those beasts. She has to see the price of choosing the wrong husband. I know I am cruel, but it is better for her to suffer deep pain once to wake up than to keep living blindly all her life next to a time bomb." 3 p.m. the next day. A honey-colored sun spilled over the purple bougainvillea surrounding the porch of the Napa estate. I was sitting in a wicker armchair, calmly turning the pages of 100 Years of Solitude. On the table, a cup of Earl Grey tea gave off a soft bergamot aroma, and the ice in my lemonade clinked together, refreshing. I looked like an aristocrat enjoying her vacation, completely oblivious to the world. But in reality, I was waiting. The security team at the gate had just reported by radio. "Mrs. Evelyn, an old taxi just stopped. 3 people are asking to see you." I smiled, closed the book, and placed it gently on the table. Click. "Open the gate," I ordered with a tone as calm as if I were talking about receiving a package, not receiving those who had stabbed me in the back. 5 minutes later, the crunch of steps on the gravel path was heard. They weren't high, proud heels or expensive leather shoes. They were shuffling, heavy, tired steps. They appeared at the end of the corridor. If I hadn't witnessed their entire collapse through the cameras, I probably wouldn't have recognized the high-class family I once supported. Jason went first. His brand-name shirt was wrinkled, stained with sweat under the arms and back. His hair, always gelled and shiny, was now greasy and fell over his forehead. He panted, face red from the heat and humiliation. Behind came Linda. Where was the elegant mother-in-law? Before me was a disheveled old woman. Runny makeup revealed dark skin, dry and cracked lips. She carried an imitation leather bag. Her eyes moved rapidly like a thief, afraid of being discovered. And finally, Emily. My heart shrank, aching intensely. My daughter was barefoot. Her heels had probably broken or she had thrown them somewhere during her flight. Her silk dress was stained with mud. She walked behind with her head down, disheveled hair covering half her face, but it couldn't hide the dark bruise spreading across her left cheek, the mark of last night's cruel slap. Their arrival brought with it a somber atmosphere, a smell of sweat, dust, and fear, in complete contrast to the elegance and cleanliness of the place where I was sitting. I didn't get up, nor did I invite them to sit. I simply stayed there with my legs crossed, raising my teacup to take a sip, my icy gaze scanning them one by one, as if I were observing bacteria under a microscope. Mom. Emily was the first to speak, her voice hoarse and broken. She took a step forward. Her trembling hand held out a crumpled business card. I recognized it immediately. It was Philip's card that I had kept in the family album 10 years ago, just in case. Yesterday, after that happened, Emily sobbed without daring to look me in the eyes. I hid in the storage room. I found this in the old album. You wrote that when I felt lost. Look for Uncle Philip. I remained silent. It turns out that the last vestige of my love and foresight from the past became the map that guided them here to stage their little number. Seeing that I didn't scream at them, Jason seemed to recover a bit of courage, or rather, his usual nerve. He lunged and knelt at my feet, a theatrical act as forced as a third-rate actor. "Mom, we were wrong," Jason shouted, trying to force some crocodile tears. "These days you haven't been here. We've been so worried we couldn't eat or sleep. The house is so cold without you, without your warmth. We are like snakes without a head. Your daughter is so sick from missing you." He turned to pull Emily's hand, pinching her lightly to give her a signal. Emily jumped and knelt, trembling next to her husband. But she remained silent, her tears falling on the tiles. Linda, who was behind, clasped her hands hurriedly, her voice so sweet it was nauseating. "That's right, dear-in-law. You leave and the house gets very sad. The children are foolish. They don't understand. Don't hold a grudge against them. Come back. Come back so they can take care of you." I set the teacup on the saucer. The crisp sound resonated, interrupting their performance. The space fell silent, only the whisper of the wind in the bougainvillea. I looked at Jason kneeling on the ground, then at Linda with her fake smile. I didn't feel anger. I only felt contempt. Deep contempt to the bone. "The house is cold?" I asked, my voice soft but sharp as a razor. "Do you feel cold because of the lack of my love, or because the heating was cut? Do you feel empty because of my absence, or because the refrigerator has no food?" Jason dropped his jaw. Mom, what are you saying? I miss you, really." I let out a laugh, a short, dry laugh. "Stop acting, Jason. Your acting is terrible. If you were such a good actor, you wouldn't have to ask for loans from loan sharks." Jason's face changed. He turned as white as paper. I stood up and walked slowly toward him. I looked down at him with the authority of one who has control. "Jason, do you miss me? Or do you miss my platinum credit card with the unlimited limit? Did you come all the way here looking for me out of maternal love, or because your creditors with scars are looking for you out there?" Jason trembled from head to toe. He stammered, "How? How do you know?" I leaned in, bringing my face close to his, and whispered loud enough for all three to hear every word. "Do you think because I'm old I'm senile? Do you think I don't know about the $250,000 debt you lost gambling online? Do you think I don't know that last night you cowardly forced your wife to sign a fake sales contract to save your miserable skin?" Jason fell backward with eyes wide in terror. He looked at me as if he saw a ghost. He never imagined that the senile old woman who cooked in the kitchen knew every one of his dark moves. Linda dropped her bag to the floor. She stepped back, bumping into a porch column. My gaze settled on Emily. She was still kneeling, her shoulders shaking with every sob. Her hand covered the bruise on her face. "And you," I said, my voice softening, less harsh but more serious. "You let a man hit you, and then you follow him here to ask your mother to pay his debts? Where is your pride, Emily? I taught you to be a queen. Why do you choose to live like a slave?" Emily looked up at me. In her teary eyes was pain, humiliation, and a desperate plea. "Mom, save me," she whispered. "They are going to kill him. And me too." "Mom!" Jason, hearing that, lunged to hug my legs, his face full of snot and tears. "Mom, save me, please. Only $250,000. For you, that amount is nothing. Pay it for me. Just this once. I swear I will be your slave for life. If you don't save me, they will really kill me." I looked at the man clinging to my legs. His cowardly and despicable appearance was very different from the arrogance with which he demanded to put me in a nursing home a week ago. I used the tip of my shoe to push his hand away decisively. "Get up," I ordered. He got up with difficulty, his eyes shining with a ray of hope. "Mom, you accepted to help me, right?" Faced with this scene, my reason told me I should be firm, that I should let them manage alone so they learned the lesson. But a mother's heart, seeing the bruise on her daughter's face, trembled, urging me to intervene. "According to you, should I soften, forgive them and pay the debt, or should I let the law and the gangsters give them the final lesson? Help me be sure of my decision by leaving your opinions in the comments below." The afternoon wind in Napa was icy, but not as cold as the look I gave the three people trembling before me. Jason still harbored a vain hope, staring at me, waiting for the credit card that would save his life. But instead, I nodded to Philip. The old lawyer understood. He dropped a stack of documents on the table. The dry sound was like a judge's hammer. Philip connected the iPad to the large screen hanging on the wall. "I invite you to relive your moments of glory," Philip said with an icy voice. The screen lit up. A video appeared in black and white, but sharp. It was from the security camera of the main branch of the Golden Grain from 2 years ago. Emily was at the cash register. She looked both ways with a guilty expression and then quickly took a bundle of cash from the proceeds and put it in her purse. The video changed scenes. She ran to the back door and handed the bundle of money to Jason, who was waiting in the car. He took it, gave her a quick kiss on the cheek, and left. Jason froze. He remembered perfectly where that money had gone. To gambling games. "Mom." I looked at my daughter, my voice grave but clear in every word. "It hurt me a lot to see this scene 2 years ago, Emily. I waited. I waited for a confession. But you chose silence, letting the lie consume this house. I'm sorry, Mom. It's me. Emily fell to her knees on the tiles. "It was Jason. He owed money from bets. He threatened to leave me." "Shut up!" shouted Jason, lunging to cover his wife's mouth. "You're the one who should shut up. My scream resonated, charged with the strength of 30 years in business, making Jason stop and shrink. Philip slid his finger across the screen. "And this part is for you, Linda." The recording of Mother's Day morning played. Linda's shrill and sour voice resonated in the silence of the estate. "Just hang in there one more year, and then we'll put her in a nursing home. Get her out of here so she doesn't get in the way." Linda paled, backing up until she hit a chair. Her usual arrogance vanished, leaving only naked fear. I smiled with disdain. "Do you like how your voice sounds? You planned it all very well. But you forgot one thing. My house, my rules." Philip closed the iPad and pushed the stack of documents toward them. "Following Mrs. Evelyn's instructions, I inform you, your immoral behavior, theft, and attempted misappropriation of assets have automatically triggered the disinheritance clause in the conditional gift contract. From this moment, Emily is completely disinherited. Jason and Linda, you two no longer have any rights. You are broke." "Broke!" screamed Linda. "Do you plan to let your daughter starve?" "I prefer she starve clean than raise crows," I responded firmly. Jason was like a lost soul. He didn't care about the inheritance anymore. What he needed was to save his life. He crawled toward me again, hitting his head against the ground repeatedly. "Mom, I was wrong. If you don't give me money, fine, but save me. In 5 minutes the mobsters will come to cut off my hands. I beg you." I looked at the coward clinging to my legs. I sighed and took a thin paper out of my bag. "You're right, Jason. Mobsters have no patience. But I have principles." I held the paper in front of him. It was a debt assignment certificate with a bright red stamp. "I bought your debt this morning. I paid them the $250,000 of principal and interest." Jason's face relaxed. He laughed like a madman. "Oh, Mom, I knew it! You paid my debt! Thanks, Mom." "Don't rejoice so fast," I interrupted him with a voice colder than ice. "I didn't pay your debt. I bought your debt. Do you understand the difference? No?" The smile vanished from his lips. "It means," I emphasized every word, "that now your creditor isn't the mobsters. Your creditor is me." I threw the debt paper in his face. "The mobsters might cut off your hands, but that is illegal. And I will collect the debt according to the law. Today I will freeze all your accounts, all your future income until you pay every penny. If you can't pay, you will rot in jail for fraud. I have enough evidence to lock you up for life. Jason. Just as I finished speaking, from behind the dense oak trees, 3 police officers came out. They weren't wearing the usual patrol uniform, but that of the Economic Crimes Investigation Unit. Philip had arranged everything. He wasn't just a good lawyer, he was a brilliant strategist. Jason stood petrified. The twisted smile on his lips looked pathetic. An officer approached and read the arrest warrant with a firm voice. Jason Martinez, you are under arrest for forgery of documents, fraud, and extortion. You have the right to remain silent, but everything you say from now on will be used against you in court. The cold sound of metal resonated. The handcuffs closed over my dear son-in-law's wrists. That sound was like the death sentence for his arrogance. Jason squirmed like a pig being slaughtered. He shouted with a face full of snot and tears, not out of repentance, but out of fear. And in that moment of despair, his cowardly nature was revealed more crudely than ever. "No, you're wrong. It wasn't me. No," he shouted, turning toward Emily, who was kneeling on the ground with bloodshot eyes. "It was her. It was my wife. She handled the finances. She gave me the money. She agreed with me." "Arrest her, not me!" Emily looked up, completely stunned. The man for whom she had defied her mother, the man for whom she had just received a blow the night before, was now ratting her out to try to save himself. And not only that, Jason turned toward Linda, his mother, who was trembling, leaning against a column. "Mom, testify for me. You instigated me to marry her because her family was rich. You told me to spend, that the old woman would die soon anyway. It's all your fault." Linda dropped her jaw. She stepped back, waving her hands. "Are you crazy, Jason? I have nothing to do with this. I'm just an old woman living off charity. Don't drag me into this." "No." I stood at the top of the steps with my arms crossed, observing the pathetic scene of betrayal. How bitter. The family that Emily adored so much was actually a fragile alliance of demons ready to devour each other when their interests were threatened. The police took Jason away. They put him in the police vehicle waiting outside. His screams faded behind the slamming of the car door. The estate patio fell silent again. But it was an unsettling silence. Only 2 defeated women remained. I walked down the steps. The sound of my heels marked a slow rhythm on the stone. I passed Emily and stopped in front of Linda. My mother-in-law lowered her head, not daring to look me in the eyes. She shrank, clinging to the strap of her peeling imitation leather bag. "Linda," I called her by name. Without formalities, without emotion. "Evelyn," she startled. "Evelyn, I'm sorry. I'll leave right now." I pointed toward the large gate where the highway stretched to the horizon. "I invite you to leave immediately, and remember my words well. Don't ever let me see you in San Francisco or anywhere else I am present. Next time won't be such a polite eviction." Linda didn't dare say half a word. She turned around with resignation, her figure hunched, and walked away with difficulty. She went on foot toward the main road, without a car to take her, without money, without a son to lean on. She had lost miserably in the game of life in which she herself had been the one dealing the marked cards. Now in the patio, only my daughter and I remained. Emily was still kneeling there. She no longer cried loudly, only muffled sobs came from her chest. Seeing me standing in front of her, she lunged and hugged my legs like when she was a little girl and broke a vase. Mom, I was wrong. It's me," sobbed Emily, her tears soaking my silk pants. "I was manipulated. I'm so scared. He hit me. Forgive me, Mom. Let me come home, Mom." My heart felt like someone was squeezing it. Looking down, I saw the bruise on her cheek, which was now an ugly dark purple color. I raised my hand, wanting to touch it, wanting to hug her and comfort her. My maternal instinct screamed at me. Help her up. Take her inside. Bathe her, feed her, and protect her like always. But my cold and lucid reason stopped my hand in the air. If I hugged her now, all the lessons learned up to this moment would go down the drain. If I forgave her so easily, she would continue being a weak, big girl, always seeking refuge in her mother's skirts. I took a deep breath, swallowing my tears. I grabbed Emily by the shoulders, not to hug her, but to push her hands off my legs. "Get up, Emily." "Mom?" Emily looked at me confused. Her hands waved in the air. I lifted her chin, forcing her to look me directly in the eyes. Look at me. The wound on your face will heal, but the ignorance in your head, if you don't treat it right now, will kill you. I let go of my hands. I stood up and took a step back, creating an invisible but firm distance between us. You say you were manipulated. True. But who allowed them to manipulate you? You say you were afraid he would hit you. I understand. But why didn't you leave after the first slap? Instead, you came back to beg me to pay his debts. Because you are a coward. You were an accomplice to the devil. You stole my money. You tried to betray me by selling my house. You have to assume responsibility for your actions. I know I was wrong, Mom. I'm going to change, pleaded Emily between tears. Words are carried by the wind, daughter. I shook my head, my voice serious. I can protect you from the rain and sun, but I cannot protect you from your own ignorance. You are 30 years old. It is time for you to be weaned. I pointed toward the open iron gate where darkness was beginning to fall. You have to leave. Emily dropped her jaw. Where are you kicking me out to? I have nowhere to go. The house is sealed. I don't have a dime. That is something you have to figure out on your own, I responded. Cruel, but necessary. The school of life has a very expensive tuition, daughter, and today is your first day of class. Go out there, find a job, rent a room with your own effort. Learn to value every dollar. When you know how to support yourself by your own means without depending on a man or your parents, then come back to find me. Mom. How could you? I can. I interrupted her with a broken voice but a gaze as firm as a rock. Precisely because I love you, I have to. I turned around and walked quickly toward the main door of the estate. I didn't dare look any longer. I feared softening. Philip, close the gate, I ordered as soon as I crossed the threshold. The lawyer Philip looked at me with concern, then at Emily, who was alone in the middle of the patio. He sighed and pressed the button on the remote control. The heavy iron gate began to close slowly. I stayed behind the glass door of the living room, looking out. Emily was there, small and alone under the fading twilight. She looked at me with a desperate expression, but in which a painful understanding was also beginning to glimpse. The gate slammed shut. The sound of metal crashing was strident, separating my warm and safe world from the harsh world my daughter was about to face. I leaned against the door and slid slowly down to the cold tile floor. Only then, when no one could see me, did I allow myself to cry. I cried in silence, my tears soaking my hands. Kicking your daughter out of the house when she is at her lowest point is the cruelest thing a mother can do. But I knew it was also the only medicine that could save her life. 6 months have passed. Time, like an old but wise doctor, has sutured the wounds of my heart in this sunny land of Napa Valley. I never went back to the Pacific Heights mansion. That house, which once housed Emily's innocent laughter and the bitter crying of betrayal, now belongs to the community. I decided to convert it into a small art museum where works by young, unknown American artists are exhibited. All the money from tickets goes directly to a charitable foundation that supports destitute elderly people. Signing the papers to change the use of the house was like removing a painful tumor, a relief. Turning what was once a den of greed into a sanctuary of generosity is the sweetest revenge I have given the past. At the estate, my life has begun a new chapter, a chapter full of vibrant colors that I had missed for the last 40 years by being busy making money. Every morning, instead of waking up at 4 to worry about accounting, I wake up with the sun. I walk under the oaks and breathe the fresh air. I signed up for a watercolor class so that fingers that only knew how to count money now learn to mix traditional indigo blue. I even go to ballroom dancing classes every Friday night. There I have rediscovered the smile of my youth, a smile without calculations or worries. As for Emily, I haven't contacted her actively, but Philip informs me discreetly of her situation every month. She didn't starve like her ex-mother-in-law's curse, but she has tasted the bitter flavor of necessity. After being kicked out of the house without a cent in her pocket, Emily had to apply for a job as an apprentice at the farthest branch of the Golden Grain in Oakland. I told the regional manager to treat her like a normal employee. If she messed up, sanction her. If she was lazy, fire her. Philip told me that the first month, Emily cried until her eyes swelled from having to bake bread 10 hours a day, her lady hands filled with blisters from the heat. She had to rent a miserable room and eat leftover bread at the end of the day to survive. Jason, after being released on bail, awaiting trial, disappeared without a trace for fear that I would collect the debt, leaving Emily alone to fend for herself. But the miracle sprouted from that hardness. In the 4th month, Philip sent me a photo taken secretly. In the photo, Emily was much thinner, gaunt, without makeup. But her look was different. It was a look of concentration, of a worker who values her own effort. She was no longer afraid of anyone's threats. Today is my 64th birthday. I am sitting by the arched window of the library, savoring a hot chamomile tea and watching the sunset over the valley. I get a voice message from an unknown number. I press to listen. A familiar voice resonates, mixed with the bustle of the street, the sound of real life that my daughter had never known before. "Mom, it's me, Emily. Happy birthday, Mom." "Mom." Her voice hesitates, then becomes firmer. "I don't dare come see you. I know I still don't deserve it. But this morning, the batch of cinnamon rolls I made with my own hands was praised as the best in the shop. The first time I received a salary earned with my own work, I cried. I understood why your hands have so many scars. I understood how heavy money is. Thanks, Mom. Thanks for kicking me out that day. Thanks to your cruelty. I have found myself. Wait for me, Mom. Thank you. I love you." The message ends. I sit in silence. Tears of happiness roll down my cheeks. I smile, a smile of relief. Emily has grown painfully. She only truly matured when she no longer had me by her side to protect her. I know that the greatest legacy I leave her is not money, but pride and the ability to stand firm before the storm. My story has closed a sad chapter to open a new one full of hope, but I know that out there are still many mothers and children who are lost. Closing this page of my diary, I want to leave you some words from the heart. To mothers, please remember that loving your children does not mean overprotecting them until suffocating them. Personal boundaries are not selfishness, but respect for oneself. Do not become an ATM or a free maid for your children. Dare to be cruel when necessary. Sometimes, letting go is the greatest sign of love. Let your children fall. Let them feel pain, because today's scar is the shield that will protect them tomorrow. And to children, please, never build your happiness on the excessive sacrifice of your elderly parents. Do not let your partner manipulate you and turn you into ungrateful people. The balance between the family of origin and the new family resides in one word: respect. Remember, no one has the obligation to support you for life. Economic independence is the only key to freedom and dignity. My life is also a costly lesson about greed. Greed is like termites. It makes no noise, but slowly eats away the most solid pillars of family ties. When money talks, truth is silent, and human affection evaporates. Do not let the material blind you, because when the shine of money goes out, the only thing you will have left will be loneliness. If you are about to start a new relationship, choose wisely a partner who not only loves you, but also respects your roots. Look at how they treat their parents in moments of difficulty. That is their true nature. The sun will rise again tomorrow. No matter how dark this night is, dawn always awaits those who dare to walk bravely through the darkness to find their own light. The story you just heard has been modified in names and places to protect the identity of those involved. We share this story not to judge anyone, but with the hope that somewhere, someone stops and reflects. How many mothers are suffering in silence in their own homes? Sincerely, I wonder, if you were in my situation, what would you do? Would you remain silent to keep the peace? Or would you raise your voice and fight to reclaim your place? I would love to hear your opinions on this story on my channel or any suggestions to help us improve our content. God always blesses the brave, and I truly believe that courage will lead us to better days. Right now, I will leave 2 of the most popular stories from the channel on the end screen. I think they will surprise you. Hello, thanks for staying with me until this moment. If this story has touched your heart, like it, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming.